Sadly, the Kraken had not won 2 games in a row since the end of that 8-game win streak at the start of the new year. But they finally get back to it here, and boy does it feel good. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where the Seattle Kraken take care of the Detroit Red Wings, defeating them 4-2 for their second win in a row and second win at home in a row. And well, yes, like we talked about in the last week or so, and certainly during the struggles the Kraken had getting back from the All-Star game on that road trip, this was another one of these games the Kraken probably should win here against the Red Wings in a string of those games, and really most of the rest of the season, as the Kraken have one of the easier remaining schedules. This was still a Red Wings team that was coming into this game red hot, having won 5 games in a row, and in doing so, actually doing the Kraken a bit of a favor, with 2 of those wins coming against the Flames and another one against the Oilers. So this was not a team that was going to go down easy for the Kraken. But thankfully, the Kraken are able to build off of a pretty good win against the Flyers and play a very similar style of game here against the Red Wings. And once again, it works out in their favor with a multi-goal win. And of course, 2 very important points in the standings. Before we jump right into the game, though, there was one small change up in the lineup for the Kraken, as Sprong was back in for Hayden, which isn't necessarily anything to do with how Hayden was playing. He actually played pretty well for the couple games he was back, but more because Hayden wasn't an option, getting sent back down to Coachella Valley with the Firebirds, which does now leave an open spot on the Kraken roster and does kind of raise an eyebrow as to whether or not there might be a trade coming for the Kraken, as this trade deadline has definitely gotten started a bit early here in the NHL. But we'll just have to wait and see whether or not that does end up happening here in the near future. I'm sure the Kraken will make some moves, at least at the deadline, if not before it. Still, there's some time before that, as it's not until early March. It also is a bit unfortunate that even though most of the trades are big players headed east from the Western Conference, the Kraken seem to be facing all of those teams right after they make those trades, as they'll have the Maple Leafs coming up here in a few days, right after they get Ryan O'Reilly, having already faced the Rangers and Islanders after having made their big adds. But getting back to this game against the Red Wings, with that being the only change in the line for the Kraken, of course also means that Grubauer is back in net for them. And once again, he was fantastic in the crease for the Kraken and really had to be very good here in the first period, and again, especially in the third period, as we'll get to. But as far as the first period is concerned, although play was pretty back and forth most of the way, and honestly, the Kraken getting the better of that flow and chances off, shots were fairly even, but the Kraken getting more time in the offensive zone and getting set up better, there was still a couple of very good chances that the Red Wings end up getting that Grubauer does have to come up with pretty big saves on. All to keep the game scoreless, so that eventually the Kraken are the ones that get on the board first. And it comes late in the first at the end of a long-ish shift for that Beniers line, as Eberle just skates in past both of his teammates who managed to stay on side before going off for a change. Eberle just kind of fires the puck off on net, hoping for a freeze and a face-off probably more than anything else, so that he can finish that change. But instead, that puck leaks right through Husso and into the back of the net to give the Kraken the 1-0 lead. It's definitely one that Husso would want back, as it just kind of squeaks through his armpit and trickles across the goal line. But for Eberle, who has been a bit snake-bitten of late, he'll happily take it. And again, it gives the Kraken that important first point on the board. First point for the Kraken that's nearly joined shortly after by a second one, as they create a very high danger scoring chance this time, with a pass getting out from behind the net to a wide open Matty Beniers all alone in front of it. He fires off the shot quick, going for a one-touch, trying to catch Husso off guard, but Husso's able to come up with the big save here after letting that less than dangerous chance from Eberle sneak through, robbing Beniers in close with no one around him. And then, of course, right back the other way, we find out just why that first goal for the Kraken was so important, as they have a turnover at the blue line by Vince Dunn as they try to get it down the other way for a final chance on the Detroit net. Instead, it turns to a final chance for the Red Wings to even things up at 1. And on a second attempt, they're able to do just that, as a bouncing puck in kind of chaos in front of the Kraken net allows a pretty open shot from the slot to get off from one of the Red Wings players, which gets saved by Grubauer going off of his face mask and straight up in the air, and then right back down, back to the middle of the slot where it came from. And this time a different player just fires it off on net. It tips just barely off of the stick of Larson and through the 5-hole of Grubauer to tie the game at 1 with the final seconds ticking off. And so, just like that, what had felt like a pretty good period for the Kraken, where they'd gotten slightly the better flow of play, and then we're going to get away with a 1-0 lead, turns into a tie game and a chance for the Red Wings to really build some momentum with that deflating goal allowed for the Kraken at the end of the period. Happily, though, the Kraken don't allow that to happen, as it's actually they who get the momentum quickly in the second period, getting a shift from the Beniers line that nearly scores, but just can't quite make it happen. And as the puck's coming back the other way, nearly turning into a 2-on-1, at the last second, Alexiak's able to make a very nice play, stealing the puck at the Kraken blue line as the Red Wings try to get in for what could have actually ended up being a breakaway if this puck had gotten past Alexiak. But he gets it up to Beniers, who drops it quickly to McCann, then McCann gets it back to Beniers. So that's the only reason that Alexiak, who probably deserved an assist on this play, doesn't end up with one. And of course, since I already said that Alexiak doesn't get a point on this and McCann does, we know that it turns into a goal. And that all happens as Beniers has the puck going into the offensive zone. He's trying to curl around Larkin to get to the net, but realizes late that that isn't going to happen. So as he approaches the goal line next to the net, he instead loops it around Larkin and flings it back into the slot where Eberle's waiting. Eberle one-times it into the back of the net to give the Kraken the 2-1 lead. And for Eberle, basically himself with the 2-1 lead, having both goals for the Kraken at this point. But even with that said, he knows as well as everyone else that this play was almost all Matty Beniers. And really the part that wasn't Matty Beniers, although I mean Eberle does have a nice shot to score, it was still set up pretty well by that nice defensive play by Alexiak at the other end. From here, things do even out once again throughout the second period, as this was really, all things considered, a much more well-played game on both sides than the 4-2 score might indicate. The Red Wings giving the Kraken a run for their money and getting a number of chances on goal, as this was still a 1-point game into the final seconds of the second period, which, to Seattle's credit, and building off of a couple of good special teams performances in the last couple of games, did come through a power play for the Red Wings and then a power play for the Kraken, neither one of which ends up scoring. So yeah, I guess the Kraken power play isn't able to continue their hot streak here over the last couple. But importantly, the Kraken penalty kill did its job pretty well to maintain that lead, with the Red Wings having the first power play. And actually, between those two power plays, the Red Wings one and then a couple minutes later, the one for the Kraken, Beniers nearly got a goal once again, as this time he was able to curl around the Detroit Red Wings defender and get the chance off on net, but Husso was able to come up with a pretty nice sliding pad save to deny Beniers for a second time. Even with all of that going relatively well for the Kraken, as their power play, even though it didn't score, did get some pretty good chances. With just a minute and 20 seconds left, or thereabouts anyway, Dunn heads to the box for a double minor high stick, and the Kraken are gonna have to kill off, well, a minute and 20 seconds if they want to keep this from getting tied again late in a period, and then probably have to kill off even more power play to start out the third. However, right off the face-off, what should have been a power play to end the period here for the Red Wings turns into 4-on-4, as Perron makes just a completely boneheaded play, holding onto the stick for a long time of, I think it was Will Borgen. Doesn't matter. It was one of the Kraken defenders. It might have been Larson. He holds onto his stick, just kind of curled around it on the ice, and sure enough, that's going to get called. He heads to the box, and it sends it to 4-on-4, where it should have been a Detroit power play. And on that 4-on-4, once again in the final seconds, this time with 7 seconds left on the clock, it's Matty Beniers, Jordan Eberle, and Alexiak once again who make it happen, as this time it's Eberle to Beniers for a grade A scoring chance, but for a third time in the game, Husso shuts down Beniers. Eberle, though, is able to pick up the rebound, and while he doesn't really have a chance to get another shot off, he is able to get the puck down into the corner and then get it back up to Beniers along the boards. And from the bottom of the faceoff circle at the far side, Beniers with the puck is able to find a completely forgotten about Alexiak as he dives down into the play on the far side of the net. Beniers fires off the pass through everybody, and Alexiak tips it home through the 5-hole of Husso, who isn't able to react in time, and the Kraken find the back of the net one more time to get that 3-1 lead, and this time it's they who score in the final seconds and have a chance to carry that momentum into the third. And so, once again, thanks to the dumb penalty taken here by Perron, the Kraken took what should have been a hold on to the seat of your pants penalty kill for the remaining 1 minute and 20 seconds of this second period into a 4-on-4 goal and a 3-1 lead. Also, I'm pretty sure the first 4-on-4 goal scored by the team this season, but they continued to 4-on-4 to start out the third for a few seconds, until eventually having to kill off the remainder of that second minor on the done double minor, which the Kraken are able to do pretty well, only allowing one shot attempt for the Red Wings the rest of this power play and really not allowing them to get set up, and eventually taking momentum once we do get into the flow of play in the third. And with that, at least a little bit of momentum anyway, it doesn't take much longer after this penalty kill comes to an end successfully for the Kraken that they do, with the help of some horrendous defense by the Red Wings, find a way to get a fourth puck past Husso. And, well, as you can see from the screenshot, yeah, this one's hard to put on Husso, as both Sprong and Golvanen, who, I mean, with a name like Golvanen, you'd think they would actually be able to keep track of him in the offensive end. I mean, his name's actually Tolvanen, but we like calling him Golvanen here because he just keeps finding ways to score goals. And when you're 2-on-1 with a goaltender, that's a pretty good way to do it, as it's actually originally Borgen who ends up getting the puck away from the Red Wings, who thought they were going to get a breakout and maybe an odd man chance going the other way with two Kraken players behind them. But Borgen gets his stick on the puck and fires off a shot, which is blocked in front by Sprong looking for a screen, but it falls right out in front of Tolvanen, who is able to get to it first, gets a shot off, but that goes off the pad of Husso, right back onto Tolvanen, and his second attempt does find the back of the net. So the Kraken get that fourth goal and the 4-1 lead. And I have mentioned a few times, especially and most of the time when it is goals that are happening against the Kraken after an odd man rush, that while expected goals is usually a pretty good stat, it does occasionally have its issues and is certainly far from perfect, where even outside of the fact that different sites calculate expected goals differently, so it's going to be different depending on where you look at it. The ones that I look at, first, Money Puck has this as a less than 0.2 expected goal. Again, you've got two Kraken players right in front of the net with all the time in the world to find a way to get this puck past Husso, which eventually they do, but apparently that was worth just an 18% chance to score. Meanwhile, the two that I actually like better in Natural Stat Trick still had this as right around 0.3 expected goals. So, while I'm not going to say that this was a guaranteed goal necessarily for the Kraken here, it was about as close as you're going to get to a guaranteed goal with a goaltender actually in net. Still, somehow, for Husso, he lets in a goal on what was, again, a 0.15 or 0.3 expected goal situation. Of course, on the Kraken end of things, thankfully, what matters isn't how many expected goals they're able to generate, it's how many actual ones they do, and this is their fourth of the game, having only allowed one so far. Now, that having been said, also Tolvanen, by the way, with this goal, having now 10 with just the Kraken alone, joining a still NHL leading long list of Kraken players with double digits while playing for the team. But that was not going to get added to as this game went along, as right after Tolvanen scores this, the Kraken, kind of like what happened with the Flyers, now that they have a pretty healthy lead here early on in the third, do go turtle mode a little bit and allow a number of high danger scoring chances, as the rest of this third period pretty much turned into the Philip Grubauer show, which fortunately he was able to put on a pretty good show. And while none of them on replay look that spectacular, at least not spectacular enough to really get a good sense of them based on a screenshot, I would recommend going and watching the highlight pack of this game, as that does a little bit more justice for how good Grubauer was in this third period. Eventually, while Grubauer was able to keep the Red Wings off of the board 5-on-5, with over 3 minutes left, they do pull Husso to get a chance to try to get back into this game at 6-on-5. And eventually they are able to do that, as it's Larkin who gets a puck bounce off the boards, fortunately to him. He gets a pretty clean shot off from a dangerous spot, and it does find its way past Grubauer to at least give the Red Wings an outside chance, pulling them to within 2 to make it 4-2. But the Kraken would kind of sure things up at this point, even with them keeping the net empty. The Kraken get a couple of empty net chances, one good one for Schwartz, which goes off of the post and then past Beniers, who isn't able to tip it in. And then a second one for Tanev, who's going to get a breakaway, but gets tripped up and just can't quite hook it in. Once again, going off of that very same post. And then as he gets up and is skating away, frustrated that he couldn't get it into the net, he gets slashed in the back of the legs by Tyler Bertuzzi, who's one of the biggest knuckleheads in the NHL. And he makes a lot of boneheaded decisions, like slashing Tanev in the back of the legs here well after the play. Of course, rightfully so. That makes Tanev absolutely incensed, and he did pretty much, I think, all he could to not run the official over on his way to beat the crap out of Bertuzzi. The official does keep them separated, but Tanev had some very choice words, which did end up getting him sent to the locker room for a 10-minute misconduct. Of course, Bertuzzi also gets sent away, and there was also another guy sent for tripping to the box. So the Kraken actually end up getting a power play for the final 30 seconds here. But obviously all that really ends up doing is making their power play percentage look worse. So all in all, a pretty well played game here again for the Kraken. Back-to-back such games at home against teams that, while neither one was necessarily a pushover like the Sharks should be here in the next game coming up, both were games that the Kraken, especially at home, should be able to come with 2 points in. And they're able to do just that, with maybe the one thing that you'd like to see changed being that in both games when the Kraken got that 3 or more goal lead, they did kind of get a bit sloppy, especially in the defensive end, and really tested Grubauer as far as preventing the opponent from getting back into the game. Again, thankfully, Grubauer has been playing consistently the best hockey that he's played as a Seattle Kraken, and preventing the opponent from taking advantage of those good chances that the defense have been allowing once they have that healthy lead. Of course, on the other end, it's nice to see the Kraken actually scoring enough to have a healthy lead in front of Grubauer, but you'd like to see them actually continue to play well once they're there. Meanwhile, as for the 2 parts of the Kraken game that have been somewhat lacking over the course of this season, relatively consistently, that we've been keeping an eye on here as of late, special teams wise, well, it is kind of a wash. Neither team ends up scoring. The Red Wings go 0 for 3 and the Kraken 0 for 2, though again, one of those was the final 30 seconds, so you hardly count that. And honestly, with how special teams have gone for the Kraken, to have neither team score is actually probably a pretty good outcome. Then, as far as face-off circle is concerned, well, the Kraken actually won that battle, winning 33 to, I think it was 28-1 for the Red Wings. So once again, in the 2 big weaknesses for the Kraken, I guess 3 if you wanted to split up the penalty kill and power play, they're able to win the face-off battle, certainly win the penalty kill with 3 killed off penalties, and while the power play doesn't score, it at least looked decent in the one real opportunity that it got. So pretty good night there as far as controlling their weaknesses, and they're able to continue scoring now with 10 goals in their last 2 games at home. So then, as always, we'll close things out with the Kraken 3 stars. And I'm not going to argue with the official 3 stars other than making a slight adjustment to the order. But the first star for both is Jordan Eberle, 2 goals and an assist on the night. And that first line was all over the place, creating high danger scoring chances and getting on the scoreboard a few times. Of course, Eberle has the 3 points, and then the second star, also a part of that line, and the center of it would be Matty Beniers. He gets 2 assists on the night and could have easily had a hat trick. Obviously, one of those would have come off of another Eberle assist, which he still gets a secondary assist on that one, the one to Alexiak there at the end of the second period. But Beniers, even without being able to find the back of the net on 3 golden opportunities, Husso just robbing him on all 3 of those, he does create very nice plays and 2 very nice primary assists, and gets 2 more points for the second night in a row. And then the third star, I will say that I considered going Alexiak again, as he had a fantastic night for the second game in a row, but especially with how most of that third period went, and one player in particular keeping the Kraken or maintaining that Kraken lead, it's Philip Grubauer getting the 3rd star for me. He does get the second official star, so he and Beniers get switched for me there. But Grubauer, another very good night as he continues to be hot in net for the Kraken, and happily they're getting back to finally scoring goals in front of him for the first time consistently in his Kraken career. Of course, I say consistently, it's only been 2 games, but we'll just hope that that continues to be true going into the future, and against the Sharks, it certainly should be. course, after that, the Kraken have the Bruins and Maple Leafs at home, but hopefully they can continue momentum into the Sharks game and then build off of what at that point should be a 3-game win streak into those two of the best teams in the NHL matchups. Of course, both of those being teams that the Kraken already beat on that 8-game road trip on the road, so certainly winnable games nonetheless. So then with Eberle, Beniers, who honestly I thought was probably the best Kraken out on the ice, but with 2 goals and an assist to just 2 assists, Eberle does get the edge for me there over Beniers. Beniers, absolutely incredible game for him though. Eberle, Beniers, and Grubauer, the 3 stars. I will, of course, give honorable mentions to Alexiak, as well as McCann, the third part of that line, also played very well, but only gets on the board with the 1 assist. And honestly, this was just Beniers and Eberle having a heck of a game, passing the puck back and forth between the 2 of them, and creating goals more often than not. But if you disagree or think I forgot anything, please do let me know down in the comments section what you thought of this game, who your 3 stars would be. And also, if you ever do happen to be at a game, I'm usually at most games, so feel free to let me know about that. Message me on Twitter's usually the best place, or you can leave a comment on a YouTube video, something like that, and I'll try and meet up with you. Shout out to Donovan, who I saw at the game in this one. And yeah, until next time against the Sharks, a day game, 1 o'clock in San Jose, so don't wait until night to watch that one. Stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken.